putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Leftists cheer against Donald Trump, and they're cheering against America. They're cheering against you. They're cheering against your victory. Why? Because ideologically, they're losers. And the only way they can feel like they're winning is if they make sure you are losing. And because Trump is winning, the only way they can pretend to be winners is they must make you feel like a loser. Ergo, in the twisted logic of leftism, winning is losing and losing is winning. Welcome to the Kevin Jackson Show, folks. That's what we've been talking about. A leftist sends me a note. On the report of 200,000 jobs being created, he says, it's all fake news. He says, I just saw where, and he named 3 companies that were laying off. And he says, that's 40,000 jobs that have been impacted in the Trump economy. And I said to him, are you really this stupid? I said, do you not think that they recognize that in the 200,000 jobs that were created? I said, did you make this complaint in the time of Barack Obama? When he was supposedly growing the economy, do you think companies were not laying off during his period? During his era? Of course they were. Companies lay off. It's competition out there, dude. There's no guarantee you're going to have a job at Sam's when Walmart's doing well, or Costco's out there competing against you, or Kroger or somebody else. There are winners and losers. But overall, see, there's this report that comes out. It's called the Economic Report, the Jobs Report. And it said, despite losing these 40,000 jobs you're talking about, we added 200,000. That's the deal. Some winners, some losers. But in the time of Trump, lots more winners. And I honestly think, you guys will think I'm kidding. I don't think he gets it. This guy's name is Justin. And he's been arguing with it. He says, I deleted stuff off my Facebook page. I'm like, dude, why would I delete your idiot stuff? I want people to see how stupid you are. If it's a Facebook, if you're getting deleted off Facebook on my page, Facebook's doing it. Maybe there's a bot out there going, let's hide stuff of stupid leftists so the right won't get it. But it isn't us. Anyway, Stephen Hayes, who was an anti-Trump guy, he writes this article and for Town Hall, and he's talking about you can't deliver good news about the Trump economy or anything else to the left. They cheer for America to fail. It says liberals have been protesting Walmart pay scales for years. Now, Walmart's raising their minimum wage by $2 an hour, but the left is angrier than ever. See, they didn't get government to force Walmart to do it. They've demonized Walmart for, you're making all this money and you haven't given anything back. Then Walmart gives out bonuses. Walmart raises its minimum wage and the left is mad. Now, I tell you this all the time because I want you to understand how these people are. They are always angry. Always. You can never satisfy a leftist. For at least 2 weeks, TV networks on the left praised Michael Wolff's book, Fire and Fury. They obsessed over the charge of whether Trump was mentally competent to hold office and even call for his ousting under the 25th Amendment, all based purely on unsubstantiated charges in a book that has now been exposed as largely a work of fiction. Members of the ATDS, that's the anti-Trump derangement syndrome crowd, don't even care whether the information is true or false. They are the, quote, birthers on the left. 1 year in, and Trump's successes are diminished as a result of Obama's policies, which is rich since Trump one by one reversed Obama-era policies. If the economic and stock market had tanked in 2017, liberals would have seized upon the bad news as evidence that Trump's policies were abject failures. Now that the policies are working, Obama gets credit. They are so blinded by anti-Trump derangement syndrome, they can't even acknowledge the double standard. I heard Gorka say on TV the other day, and he was quoting a radio host that said, if it weren't for double standards, the liberals wouldn't have any standards at all. Hayes goes on to say this. I remember at a Wall Street Journal editorial meeting when Barack Obama was first elected president and he was rolling out Obamacare, the stimulus plan, tax increases, a regulatory assault, and a litany of other dim-witted economic policies, One of the writers said what we were all thinking. If this program works, everything we believe on the economy is wrong. That's what I said. He says, we oppose the policies, not the man. And in the end, the Keynesian big government policies were indeed a failure. We ended up with our weakest economic recovery since World War II. It was the weakest economic. To call it a recovery is a joke. We spent almost $10 trillion for this recovery. We essentially, in terms of debt, we created another United States of America. Can you imagine that? And somebody looks upon that and goes, this is a good thing. Barack Obama was he was a failure of unimaginable proportions. And the only thing that propped that sucker up was the fact that you kept working and he borrowed money that we didn't have. And thankfully, we have a person that stepped into his tiny little shoes and put an economy together that could absorb the damage that he's done. I want you to think about not having $10 trillion of debt, having a much lower deficit, and money being spent in the right places, having really and truly fought a war on terror so we can recover those funds, having allowed industry to not have to go through all this onerous legislation that Barack Obama implemented, not destroying our natural resources and the energy industry, which is what he's done, putting in policies that would actually bring jobs back. If he had done this 9 years ago, this economy would be booming. But he didn't do it. He was too stupid to do it. Says, is it true that opposition to Obama on the right prompted some conservatives to root against American success on his watch? I began this segment, the last segment, by saying exactly that. I rooted against Barack Obama because, to go back to his dim-witted economic policies, I knew they couldn't work. Why? Because I actually have a brain. He says, when the International Olympic Committee snubbed Obama's hometown of Chicago, there were videos of conservatives celebrating the bad news. The cascade of disappointing economic data on Obama's watch was too often cheered by Republicans. I'm one of them. You probably are as well. I cheered when they failed because we needed to validate that they weren't working. You would think at some point Barack Obama would have said, I'm going to course correct. Maybe 2010, when he got his butt kicked in the midterms, you would think he would course correct. Do you know what that clown did? He doubled down. He said, I'll teach y'all. He started going around Congress. He said, I don't care what the American people think. He rammed Obamacare down our throats and a host of other unbelievably stupid policies. And yes, I cheered. Stephen Hayes goes on. Some of these Republicans are starting to put politics first and country second, observed then Rep. Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat out of Maryland who is now a senator. The American people are starting to wonder if they're rooting against America, he charged. And he had a point, Hayes writes, back in 2009. But Senator, look in the mirror. Most Americans are not especially ideological. We are ideological for what works. The United States is on a roll right now. And the good economic news transcends political spin. Tens of millions of Americans are starting to see the benefits in their paychecks. If Trump haters continue to sit on their hands and oppose America's comeback, voters will see they are putting political ideology over patriotism. Now, I say this to tell you that we are at the onset of this is the beginning. If you think the Democrats are going to learn any lessons by anything I'm saying, because I'm putting a playbook out there. Support what works. End of story. I would have done it for Obama. Stephen Hayes finishes by saying, that's no winning ticket if you just oppose someone ideologically when his policies are working. And he says it also means they're in for a miserable next 7 years. Again, a guy who I know for a fact was against Trump has now changed his tune Think about that in terms of the Republicans who didn't support Trump going into 2016. What do you think they're going to do in 2018 and in 2020? They've seen the results. It is going to be a miserable next 7 years for these guys. And it should be. But they should hopefully find some happiness in their paychecks or their 401ks.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.